Ask the Mayor. Your chance to ask the Mayor of Weymouth, Bob Headland, questions about the town and or anything else that you have concerns about. Ask the Mayor is pre-recorded. And now, Ask the Mayor with Bob Headland.
And welcome back to Ask the Mayor. I am filling in for Jim Melody here with Mayor Headland. How's everything going for you right now?
Well, actually, we talked about that before we started. Kind of chaotic today. We're doing this really on the fly, and
You've been busy.
I really haven't looked at any questions.
That's
and
true.
Can you get a shot of that?
What is that?
I'm a little behind
Yeah.
this week.
The mayor has a large stack.
Very
Do you have to
chaotic,
sign
yeah.
all those papers? Or is that just reading?
There's both. There's a lot of reading and a lot of signing. I find signing easier than reading, by the way.
You do?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you just do one line?
No, I
Or
sign my
you
name.
really do a good job with your writing? We were just talking
No,
about
my
penmanship.
cursive signature has gotten worse over the years.
Yeah. Because you have to sign a lot being the mayor and all.
It is interesting looking at other staff signatures and who's got nice handwriting. No, it is interesting. My favorite is our town solicitor.
Right.
So evidently there's no legal issues with being cute with your name. He just signs it Cal. Multi-million-dollar contracts and it says Cal. So.
All right, let's get to the questions.
Let's do it. Oh, we got some housekeeping too, right? I wanted
Sure. So,
Can I start with a correction?
sure.
As I've stated before on the show, I learn something from the show occasionally. And we had a questioner, I don't know if it was the last show or the show before, that questioned my Twitter account and said something, I guess I didn't understand the question fully. He said something about my tweets showing up on the town webpage. I don't know what he's talking about in that this was on a town website. This was not on a town website. This is my personal Twitter, which I was unaware of. And I think the way I answered the question was no. He asked me if he showed us a quote. He quoted a tweet, I guess it was what it was, and wanted to know if it was appropriate. And I said, well, you know, I can use my Twitter for whatever I want. My Twitter handle is Mayor Bob Headland. And I said, you know, I don't check my First Amendment rights at the door when I became mayor. I just have the right to vent once in a while on Twitter. I use it to get town news out, but I also comment on stuff I see. Which I don't really do that on my Mayor Bob Headland or Bob Headland Mayor Facebook page, but I do on Twitter. And he said something about the town website. I had no idea what he was talking about. Well, as it turns out, the writer...
It was Mr. X, actually.
Oh, it was a Mr. X.
Yes.
Well, Mr. X was actually correct. Unbeknownst to me, evidently, and I still haven't gotten to the bottom of it, but evidently someone in IT got the bright idea to link my Twitter account to the town webpage. So I guess when I tweet, it comes up somewhere, and you have to search for it. It's not a direct link. You have to go to some section of the website and then link to my Twitter account, but it does come up on the town website. So they have taken that down. The choice was, I stop pontificating about non-town stuff, or we take it off. So we took it off. So I will still be pontificating about non-town stuff on my Twitter account, which is basically, you know, my own use. So he was right, and I answered the question improperly because I had no idea that somebody linked it to the town webpage at some point. I don't even know when they did it. So nobody's pointed that out to me before, so thank you, Mr. X.
Yes. All right, we're going to go to North Weymouth because, as you know,
We always go to
that's
North Weymouth.
where I grew up.
Oh, yeah.
Still have family down there.
You're one of the few people that tried to escape North Weymouth. Most people want to go to North Weymouth, Mary.
Yeah, I love North Weymouth.
But you moved out of North Weymouth.
I did move.
Where we're moving on
Down.
to the side.
Down.
So you didn't love it that much.
I married a guy from East Weymouth, so we
So?
moved over there. Yeah.
Ah.
All right. Anyway.
That makes no sense, but
All
go
right.
ahead.
Is there any activity you can share with us relating to properties on Route 3A that have been affected by the most recent rezoning?
Correct. So the overlay that was created on our commercial corridors, at the same time that we created more restrictive zoning in the neighborhoods, I might add, people forget that part of it, has generated a lot of interest on all of the commercial corridors, and we see action on all of the commercial corridors as a result, not only interest but action, with the exception of Route 3A. Bridge Street. The problem we're dealing with there is some of the parcels that people have expressed interest in, and people who have approached the town to look at redevelopments of their sites, including some that have some notoriety, you know, and
Famous, yeah.
yeah, and whether fairly or unfairly, get picked on social media. That particular site has generated interest. The problem is, it's okay, it's my phone,
Okay.
don't worry about it. It's not going to blow up, it's just an alert that I'm getting text messages or something. So the site in question that I'm using as an example, it's really too small to make it worthwhile for a development site. So I know in that case, for instance, people are trying to assemble additional parcels adjacent to it to make something happen. But there's interest from outside people, and there's interest in the owner of that particular site. For instance, I'm not picking on one site, but there is interest on that site for redevelopment opportunity, which would be nice. It is a great site. It's just a little bit of a small parcel to generate as much interest as it otherwise could. There have been some smaller parcels further up that, and don't forget, in that zoning that the council approved, the overlay district for Route 3A only runs from the Hingham line to the U-Haul site. It doesn't include further up Bridge Street.
No kidding. That
Right.
seems like such a small section.
Well, that was deliberate. I mean, we wanted to, and again, this was done in conjunction with the council, but for Route 3A, that was really going to be kind of a trial area. The idea was, if it was successful, we could extend that overlay district further down. But as you go further down, the problem you have is you have a very narrow width of land on Bridge Street with homes behind it. So you really don't want to have dense development going up on Bridge Street in areas where there are homes directly behind it. Height issues, blocking of sun, et cetera, et cetera. So that was part of the consideration. You know, you look at that corridor once you get through Bicknell Square, or even before Bicknell Square. The houses, between Bicknell Square and the end of the overlay district at U-Haul, the houses literally back up to 3A, so you can't do it there. Once you get past Bicknell Square heading north, take a site, for instance, like the old Suburban TV, i.e. Panda Rug, which is an eyesore. You got houses directly behind it, so how high are you going to be able to go up? So the overlay really didn't fit in that instance. That was part of the consideration.
I thought it was for the whole street.
In that instance, no.
No. Huh. Also, we got a question from North Weymouth. Is there anything going on that boardwalk that we've talked about?
Yes, that's
between the two
progressing.
beaches?
We're in probably what is really the hardest part and the more time-intensive part, which is the environmental permitting, which we, in our presentations to the town, to residents, we presented a timeline. I don't know if Jeff can access that or not. But in those presentations, you saw a timeline, and if you look at that timeline, the biggest portion of the timeline is, engineering, environmental permitting. And this is, anytime you're dealing with waterfront, there's a number of regulatory agencies that you have to get through the permitting and vetting process with, so that's where we are now. Once all of that is done, we have an idea of feasibility, engineering's done, we have an idea of cost, then we go back to the state Seaport Economic Development Council, and we apply for another grant for the construction side. So everything that has been funded thus far has been through that grant. I think there's a little match. It may have come from our CPC, but just about all of it has come through that state grant, and that's the way we would pursue this for the actual development of it, construction of it.
So is it safe to say that won't be built in the summer of 2019?
No, absolutely not.
Okay,
Right.
so it's still a far-off project, at least
Yeah, and then
another
it's subject
year.
to securing the additional participation of the state at that point. I mean, obviously, we're not going to put, this is a luxury project. It's not a necessity, obviously.
Sure, yeah.
It's not going to come ahead of school renovations. It's not going to come ahead of other capital projects that we need to do. And this is why people get confused all the time. Oh, why are you doing this when you should be doing this? And why are you doing that when you should be doing that? This is a very specific grant program for the state for waterfront development projects like this. And this is something, remember, that the town identified in its waterfront master plan over 30 years ago that was their number one priority.
You're busy.
So that's,
Okay, still
That's that.
staying up on 3A. Very recently, we unfortunately had a pedestrian killed in front of that area, the old Harbor Light Mall, Lowe's shopping mall. And I was thinking of crossing busy streets and how often we see pedestrians really taking high risks. So I think because
we've had more than one pedestrian fatality over the last, 4 or 5 months.
But
We've
I
had
think-
3, I think.
So-
And just for the record, I mean, not to speak for the police department, but we've had instances in those cases where the pedestrian were at fault, unfortunately.
Right. So the area that concerns me is the area
You know the
between-
number of, I just want to throw this out, pedestrian accidents in the city of Boston? I saw the numbers a few years back. Staggering.
Really?
Staggering amount of, and I think there's, I used to have the number off the top of my head, but it is just amazing how pedestrian fatalities and accidents have increased because people aren't paying attention like they used to, and they're so distracted by whatever they're doing with phones and things. It's unbelievable, and it's a concern. I don't think that was at play in the 3 recent incidents in Weymouth, however, but just my editorial comment.
So every time I'm going down Route 53 quite often, coming over here to Town Hall on
We're heading
Middle
home.
Street. Sure. Stop and Shop parking lot to Shaw's parking lot. People don't go over to the light and push the walk sign. They actually walk between the 2 entryways of those 2 shopping lots.
Now that's interesting because it seems that often I'm at that intersection, there is a pedestrian crossing, using the crossing walk, and that is the longest pedestrian crossing signal that we have in the town because it's such a wide intersection. Right. So I do see people using it. I have not witnessed lately what you're talking about.
Sometimes with a shopping cart. So I wish that there was something that we could do to kind of, I don't know if you can educate the public or if you could do something that would slow down the traffic
Educate the public not to do stupid things?
Yeah.
I have like the golden rule with my son, don't do anything stupid.
Yeah.
How well do you think that goes over?
I don't know.
He's lost 3 winter coats this winter.
Forgetfulness.
Yeah.
A lot of boys have that. Okay, so now this is about signs, neon
By the way,
signs.
though, I think I'm just thinking the other two incidents we have. I don't know the one that just happened this past week. It sounds like the person was not using the pedestrian signal.
I agree with you.
And the Route 18 incident, the person,
Jaywalked.
well, he was doing worse than jaywalking. You know,
Okay.
it was even more troublesome. I think it was inviting. What happened? It sounds like. So, use the pedestrian crosswalks. And you know what I love, by the way, just more editorial comment. You ever notice when someone hits it like 100 times, they think it's an instant. They don't
Yes.
understand it's part of the light cycle, and they hit it like 500 times. I love that.
It's kind of like
You
an
can have fun with that kind of thing.
elevator button, same thing. You just
I
keep
was at
touching.
Social Hospital this morning, and I witnessed that, and the thing is lit up. And it was a staffer. It was a Social Hospital staffer who must use the thing every day. You haven't figured out yet that if the light's on and you have the thing up there that says 5 and it's coming down to 2, that it's like on the way, and they're going boom, boom.
Yeah.
I saw that today. That was kind of
It's
funny.
impatience, really.
It doesn't. It's irrational. It makes no sense.
Don't you think people do a lot of irrational things?
I see it
Every day.
all day.
Okay, so this is from our friend Karen Graham. I would say somewhat of a regular writer. Speaking
Not
about,
as prolific as Ed Hartnett or Jason Thayer, but
I agree. Her concern is continuity in town properties, signs. She's concerned about for instance, the convenient MD urgent care facility that has a huge neon sign.
yes.
And also asks about signage for the new storage facility at the corner of Pleasant and Wash. How big is that sign going to be? Any word on that? Just, are we getting to...
Very interesting question and very good question, because both of those topics were highly discussed before the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that in the case of Urgent MD, I wasn't involved, but I followed very closely that discussion. Our planning department pushed back significantly against Urgent Care MD. Their original proposal called for even more signage on the side. Now, what happened with Convenient Care MD was, and I'm going to botch this a little bit, but the essence of what I'm saying is accurate. But under the old, under the zoning bylaws, if you look at signage, they do a calculation, the size of the sign based on the size of the building side with some ultimate limits. Their argument was that with all the assemblage of the parcels that they did and the removal of the gas station, the removal of the dry cleaner, that the total size of their signage was less than what had been on the site before. And they did seek a variance on the main front side of the building for that size. They also agreed to eliminate signage on the back side that faced the neighborhood, which they did for us after we requested it. And they also shrunk the size of the sign that was on the side on the Pond Street side, okay? So I kind of heard about it, but I couldn't kind of visualize it based on, the data that was put forward on paper. Now that I see it, I do think that it is, I agree with Karen. I think that one side is a little too intrusive size-wise. And if we could have a do-over on that one, I would have liked to have seen it smaller, in my opinion. But
Much like the batter's eye across the street here, being a little out of scale.
Well, you know my answer to that previously. It was my idea, but
Aren't you pleased
it's not
I got that
it's not what I told them to do, and it kind of appeared one day, and I almost drove off the road. And unfortunately, you brought that up again, and I wish you hadn't. But I think the best answer that I gave to that before, and I agree, it's too big. It's too big. And that will, over time, that will change, I think. But, it's an investment they made. The baseball team likes it. But I think the analogy I made was for those, and we like to make some pop culture references on this show every once in a while. I think I made the analogy to what happened in the movie Spinal Tap, where I won't get into it too deep.
I do remember this.
But
Jeff has a full
the band
graphic
decided
for it.
that they had an album coming out, and there was a song called Stonehenge, and they got the great idea that they would recreate Stonehenge, and they're talking to their manager one day in a bar or something. They're like, yeah, and they drew a picture, and we want these big stones to come down when we play Stonehenge. So the night of the show, they're playing Stonehenge, and these things come down, and they're these little tiny things, and they get in an argument after the show. They were all ticked off, and the manager finally pulls out a napkin, and he goes, you wrote it down here.
And that was the scale.
14 inches. And he goes, well, I meant 14 feet. He goes, well, you wrote 14 inches. So that was like Spinal Tap in reverse. I wrote this vision down, a subtle logo, and the logo suddenly became this giant thing. So
You should have sized it up. On another note from Karen.
and I got to give the guy who did that a pass because he's done great work.
I agree.
And that was his one little hiccup in the 3 years that I've been here.
On Mutton Lane, the antique house that is being restored, now that the contractor has gone under and cannot finish, will all the same rules apply to whomever it takes over it? Some things aren't as good ideas as they are portrayed.
Actually, I would disagree with this. Number one, if the contractor has gone under, I'm unaware of it because he is actually under construction out behind it. Now, it's true the contract is going slow, but I have actually walked through the house.
Looks nice.
To take a look, and his work has been phenomenal on it. I got to give him that.
I love that.
He does have a financial backer who I am familiar with and we have talked to and kind of vetted, who I've recently talked to. The antique house, which was blanking out whatchamacallit, his house.
Brad Hawes?
Brad Hawes, thank you. It was Brad Hawes' house, and Brad Hawes had a significant role in Weymouth history. The house has a significant role in Weymouth history, and I'm very proud to say, despite some naysayers and people who question the ability of the contractor to pull this off, right? And sometimes, we live in a free market and a free society, and just because you don't like someone doesn't mean we can prevent them from doing something. In this case, the guy has delivered. The house has come out phenomenal. He is meeting all the requirements that the Historic Commission put on him and the Planning Department put on him in terms of replicating it historically accurate, using the right materials. The house is coming out awesome. He's actually been living in it while he's doing the work. And the other 2 homes out back are underway, and he's put the road in, the infrastructure in. So if he's gone under, it's happened in the last couple of days that I'm unaware of. And I do know that the partner in the background that he has, the financial partner that he has, is stronger than strong, who could buy me and you 15 times over. So I don't think he's going anywhere. I think it's a matter of source of pride for him. He's a Weymouth kid. I'm happy for him that he's pulling it off, despite maybe other issues that I'm unfamiliar with, but I've kind of heard about through the rumor mill. But this is a rumor. He's not gone under. The house is being done. And I would say, despite the differences that the town has had with Mr. Ryder recently, we've been at odds with him on a couple of projects. He's doing the Fardig house around the corner,
Yes.
which abuts it from behind,
Very nice.
that has come out just as nice. And so we got 2 historically significant homes that were built in the 1700s that are both coming out nice. So that little corner, there's a lot of history being preserved there, and kudos to both of those guys for preserving that history.
I agree.
And back to Flaherty's place, the Brad Hawes home. That again is the first home in the history of Weymouth that has been
Saved
preserved
by demo delay.
under the demolition
Right.
delay bylaw. So I mean that's just incredible when you think we're the second oldest community in the state. It tells you that maybe at times we've been lacking in preserving some of our history. So to have gone through the hoops that we went through to make this work with him, I'm glad we did it, because it's coming out the way we hoped it would come out. And it's the first time we've saved a structure under that bylaw. First time ever. So kudos to Historic, kudos to the Planning Department for working through this with him. And I think I can't remember what the council approval would have been on this, but I think there was some council involvement in this too. So,
Okay, can we get on to probably the most talked about thing in Weymouth, speeding and traffic? So from Dan Curran,
it's not just Weymouth, it's everywhere.
I have one issue that we need your help. We have a terrible speeding problem on Thicket Street in South Weymouth. As you probably know, it's a cut-through street to communities that have many motorists that violate the public safety laws, motor vehicle laws of the Commonwealth. I see this occurring every day, and it has to stop. I've called the Weymouth Police Department, was only able to leave a voicemail, never got a response. Can you intercede and get us some speed monitoring, or can we get permission to set up a neighborhood watch and start reporting plate numbers? I am at the point of monitoring the traffic myself and taking action against these motorists. I'm just trying to avoid another tragedy on Thicket Street. Thank you for your help. Dan Curran.
So, I mean, this is a town-wide problem. We get this all the time. I mean, I live off of a cut-through street myself. I'm not on the cut-through street, but my kid has to cross that street. There's a blind hill to go to his buddy's house. I don't let him cross the street by himself. And it just blows my mind how people speed. And not only speed, but speed while they're distracted driving. I have a couple occasions I had our traffic unit check that street. It didn't bear as much fruit for them as it has on places like Pleasant Street, where they where they regularly set up radar. I wish I had more people in the traffic division, but the guy who runs our traffic division is out and does many of these patrols himself, does a great job, Sergeant Fogarty. I will look for some increased enforcement on that street. I'm very familiar with the street. I'd like to put a wall up between Holbrook and
Really?
Weymouth if we could, right? Eliminate some of that traffic, that'd be great. It's interesting that, what Boston just was rated the worst traffic, and what happens in Boston has an effect, obviously, throughout the metropolitan area. It's a reality that isn't going to change anytime soon unless these flying cars and autonomous vehicles and things, take hold. But no, I feel his pain, and we get these complaints all over town, all the time. It isn't just his neighborhood. And, I've had the police tell me that when they do set up radar, oftentimes some of the biggest scofflaws are the people who live in the neighborhood. Mm-hmm. And then they complain to me that they're getting ticketed in their own neighborhood. It's kind of a catch-22, so we're in a box on this. But duly noted, we'll see what we can do.
Okay, and also kind of traffic related, when will the construction on Route 18 be completed?
I forget the
years,
timeline.
right? Isn't it years?
Yeah, it's a 4-year project. So I can tell you, well, so it started when?
I don't know.
Last year.
Ryan, when did it start?
So-
Ryan goes on Route 18 every day.
So, I mean, you've posted updates on the zone and stuff on this, and it's been well covered around town. Off the top of my head, I can't remember what the start date was, but it's a 4-year project. I will say that by all reports from our police department, from our traffic engineer, from our planning department, Gioso has been awesome working with us thus far.
Who?
Gioso is the general contractor,
Okay.
the person that got the company that got the bid. Actually, one of the chief engineers on the job is a high school classmate of mine who lives in the area. They've been good so far, and they are ahead of schedule, so things are moving along quite well, and they're making it work. There's been some disruptions, but I think the disruptions haven't been as bad as everyone was fearing that they would be. Obviously, once that bridge shutdown happens, which is going to be brief, but is going to happen, that'll be the biggest impact. We have some impacts now as a result of the national grid situation getting resolved. We have Riley Brothers Contractor back out there doing the gas line work on Route 18. So that right now is a problem. You've seen a section of Route 18 down towards Mary Lou's by the Front Street section down there, down to one lane during the day, so that's stunk during the day to get around that, but that's moving ahead pretty well, and they should be out of the way on that. So,
But still a
4-year
few
project.
More, yeah, so still a few more years out, right?
Now the good news is they're getting a lot of the Weymouth part of this out of the way kind of early, because don't forget this goes down into Abington too. So,
Ryan's never going to be able to get to work anymore, so.
well, I mean, I'm down there a lot. I'm not down there in rush hour, which I imagine it's. I mean, I used to live in South Weymouth, so I know what it was like in rush hour. Even back in the day, 30 years ago, 25 years ago, it stunk too. But it's not going to get any better because of the explosive. We talked about this too. It's not going to get any better. I mean, the 4 lanes may help, but the explosive growth we've had south of Weymouth, people forget. I mean, you look at the Hanovers, the Abingtons, the Hinghams, everybody south of us, and I know Hingham doesn't use 53, but I mean 18, but south of us on 18, the population growth in those towns has been explosive, and it hasn't been Weymouth, again, according to the U.S. Census. It's people going through our town.
Okay, so this is.
So when we build the wall on Thicket, we'll build one down past Uncle Charlie's too.
Oh, okay. I'll have to go on 123 or something. All right, so this is the ending of our first episode.
Where's Melody, by the way?
Melody's on vacation this week. We are
Where did he
taping
go?
during school
Where did he go?
vacation week, somewhere warm. I'm not sure.
Okay.
So we're on school vacation week.
Probably poolside in a G-string right now.
It was an itsy bitsy teeny weeny yellow polka dot bikini.
So I have a movie, a TV show reference.
Are we done?
Yeah, well, it's for this first episode, yes.
How much time you got?
30 minutes.
Oh, that was quick.
MASH.
Well, first of all, who is our...
That's JFK. No? What is it?
I knew you were going to get that wrong.
I can't see it.
Who is that?
Oh, it's the other one. Now, you
The
did
other
not
one? Who's
show-
the other one? Ted
Robert.
Kennedy?
This is Robert.
Robert Kennedy,
You did not show that face to me when we started.
Melody got the other one from the back of the head before.
Well,
all right,
that's
all right.
impressive.
So what do you get for a
MASH.
I don't remember MASH being on TV 38. It was in prime time.
Why
back
does it
then.
have to be on 38?
Because Ask the Manager was on WSBK
Well, then
TV
I'm-
38,
yeah.
and we always joke about what would segue from Ask the Manager that we have ripped off to. And by the way, Mary is responsible for getting the great Dana Hersey voiceover at no cost. He did it
Yes.
pro bono, which was really awesome because he gets paid to do all the WRKO stuff now, and he used to be the imaging voice of WSBK.
Right. Okay, so we'll see.
When can we get him to come in and do the show
I
live
will-
with me?
I wanted to know what Cliff Allen's overall remarks were about the school because isn't he an alumnus? Did you go to Northeast Broadcasting School?
No, Dana. I attended Quincy Junior College and then later UMass Boston. That would
I've
be the
looked into
pinnacle
that.
of my legislative and mayoral career if he comes in here to
No, one of those silly wrestlers that you like, that would be the pinnacle
That would
of
be
your
actually
career.
pretty.
Yeah.
Bobby the Brain Heenan's dead. Gene Okerlund's
I
dead, so
can't
that
even
won't work.
guess at all those people.
Can we get, if we went remote to make it convenient for Hersey and go do it wherever he does his stuff?
I'll put in a
He has a studio in his house, I understand. That's where he does all his imaging work for WRKO, I think.
I think he was renovating his house last time I checked.
What's your connection to him? Are you allowed to divulge on the air?
A dear friend of mine works with his wife.
His wife. What does his wife do?
She's some sort of administrator.
Oh.
Okay, so can we just say we'll see you on the next episode of Ask the Mayor. MASH.
If you have a question, please email the mayor at askmayorbob@gmail.com. That's askmayorbob@gmail.com. Maybe your question will be answered on the next episode of Ask the Mayor.